The gunshot echoed across the plains as Bella Hayes lay sprawled in the dust, blood seeping through her riding skirt, coloring the Montana dirt a deep crimson. June 1876 had brought nothing but misfortune since she'd ventured west, and now, as she stared up at the endless blue sky, she wondered if this would be her last view of the world. "Don't you die on me now, miss," came a deep voice, followed by the silhouette of a man blocking the harsh sun from her eyes. "Those bandits are gone, but they've left you in quite a state." Bella tried to speak, but pain seared through her leg like wildfire. The stranger knelt beside her, his weathered face coming into focus. Dusty brown hair peeked from beneath a well-worn Stetson, and concerned green eyes studied her wound with alarming intensity. "Name's Griffin Reed," he said, tearing a strip from his own shirt to fashion a tourniquet. "I reckon that bullet went clean through your thigh, but you're bleeding something fierce." "Bella," she managed through gritted teeth. "Bella Hayes." Griffin worked quickly, his calloused hands surprisingly gentle as he tied off the wound. "Nearest doctor's in Sweetwater, good 30 miles from here. Your horse is bolted, and mine can't carry double for that distance at speed." Bella felt consciousness slipping. The Montana Territory wasn't kind to the unprepared, and she had been woefully unprepared for the bandits who'd ambushed her wagon train. As the only survivor, she'd been left for dead. "I can't walk," she whispered, the reality of her situation crashing down on her. Griffin's jaw set with determination. "Then I'll carry you, Miss Hayes." Before she could protest, he gathered her in his arms, careful not to jostle her injured leg. Bella caught the scent of leather, horses, and prairie grass as he lifted her against his chest. "My wagon," she murmured. "Nothing worth saving," Griffin replied, his voice a rumble she could feel through his chest. "Those bandits took everything of value. We need to get you to Sweetwater before infection sets in." As he carried her to his horse, Bella wondered about this stranger who'd appeared from nowhere to save her. His clothes marked him as a cowboy, probably working one of the big cattle operations that had sprung up across the territory. The question was why he'd stopped to help when most men would have ridden on. "Why?" she asked as he carefully positioned her across his saddle before mounting behind her. Griffin secured an arm around her waist to keep her steady. "My ma raised me better than to leave a lady in distress," he said simply. "Now rest if you can. We've got a long ride ahead." The journey was a blur of pain and feverish dreams for Bella. Griffin would stop occasionally to check her wound and give her water, but mostly they rode in silence, his body shielding her from the worst of the elements as afternoon turned to evening. Night had fallen by the time they reached Sweetwater, a collection of rough wooden buildings illuminated by scattered lanterns. Griffin rode directly to a small house at the edge of town, marked by a weathered sign that read Dr. Wilson. The doctor, a gray-haired man with spectacles perched on his nose, opened the door at Griffin's insistent knocking. "Reed?" "What in tarnation?" Bullet wound. Griffin interrupted, carrying Bella inside. "Found her 30 miles out. Bandits." Dr. Wilson cleared his examination table with one sweep of his arm. "Put her here." "How long ago?" 6, maybe 7 hours, Griffin answered, gently laying Bella down. She whimpered as the movement sent fresh pain through her leg. "You're lucky Mr. Reed found you, young lady," the doctor said, cutting away the fabric around her wound. Few men would have bothered with a stranger in trouble, much less carried them this distance. Bella's eyes sought Griffin, who stood by the door, hat in hand, his face etched with concern. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once. "I'll wait outside." For the next hour, Dr. Wilson cleaned and treated her wound, giving her laudanum for the pain. When he finally finished, he informed her that while the bullet had missed major arteries, the damage was severe. "You won't be walking for some time, Miss Hayes," he said gravely. "The muscles need to heal properly. Even then, there's no guarantee you'll walk without difficulty again." Bella closed her eyes, fighting back tears. She'd come west to start a new life after losing her parents to influenza back in Boston. All her possessions, her money, even her identity papers had been in that wagon. Now she was stranded, injured, and without means in a frontier town where she knew no one. Griffin re-entered at the doctor's beckoning. "How is she?" "She'll live, but she needs care," Dr. Wilson explained. "I can keep her here tonight, but my infirmary is small, and I'm expecting miners with spring fever any day now." Griffin twisted his hat in his hands, then made a decision. "I've got a cabin. It's modest, but it's clean. She can recover there." Bella tried to protest. "Mr. Reed, I couldn't possibly. It's settled," Griffin said firmly. "Unless you've got family nearby." The simple question brought her situation into stark relief. She had no one. No family, no friends, not even acquaintances in this vast territory. Tears threatened again, but she blinked them back.
"No.
No one." Dr. Wilson patted her hand. "Then you'd best accept Mr. Reed's offer, Miss Hayes. He's one of the few honest men in these parts. Works for the Rockingham Ranch. Been here 3 years now." Griffin looked uncomfortable with the praise. "I'll come for her in the morning then. Get her settled at my place." The doctor nodded. "I'll prepare instructions for her care." That night, alone in the doctor's spare room, Bella stared at the ceiling, contemplating how drastically her life had changed in a single day. She'd lost everything, yet somehow found herself under the protection of a man she barely knew. A cowboy with kind eyes who'd carried her across miles of wilderness when she couldn't stand on her own. Morning brought Griffin back, driving a small wagon with a makeshift bed of blankets in the back. Dr. Wilson helped him transfer Bella, ensuring her injured leg was properly supported. "You'll need to change the dressing daily," the doctor instructed Griffin. "Keep the wound clean. I've given her medicine for pain and to prevent infection. I'll ride out to check on her in a few days." Griffin paid the doctor, waving away Bella's protests that she would somehow repay him. "Save your strength for healing," he told her as he climbed onto the wagon seat. The ride to Griffin's cabin took nearly an hour. Located on a small rise overlooking a creek, the structure was indeed modest, a single-room log cabin with a stone chimney. A corral for horses stood nearby, and a small garden plot showed signs of recent planting. "It's not much," Griffin said apologetically as he carried her inside. "But it's dry when it rains and warm when it snows." The interior was surprisingly tidy for a bachelor's dwelling. A bed with a quilt stood in one corner, a table and 2 chairs in another. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with cooking implements hanging nearby. Simple shelves held a few books, and hooks on the walls supported clothing and gear. Griffin carefully placed Bella on the bed. "You'll take this. I'll make a pallet by the fire." "I can't take your bed," she protested weakly. "You can and you will," he replied, his tone brooking no argument. "Now rest. I need to tend to my horse and bring in water." Over the next few days, Bella learned more about her rescuer. Griffin Reed had come west from Pennsylvania after the war, working cattle drives before settling at the Rockingham Ranch. He'd saved enough to buy this small parcel of land, which he worked in his spare time, hoping eventually to have his own ranch. He was 30 years old, had never married, and possessed a quiet dignity that Bella found increasingly comforting. He was also unfailingly kind, changing her bandages with gentle hands and ensuring she had everything she needed before riding out to his regular job. "The foreman's given me lighter duties close to home for now," he explained one evening as he prepared a simple stew. "Said he owes me time anyway." Bella watched him from the bed, propped up on pillows. "They must think highly of you." Griffin shrugged. "I do my work and keep to myself. That's enough for most folks out here." "And yet you took in a complete stranger," she observed. He stirred the pot before answering. "Didn't seem right to leave you with nowhere to go." A week into her stay, Dr. Wilson rode out to check on her progress. The news was mixed. Her wound was healing well, but the muscle damage was extensive. You need to start trying to move it, the doctor advised. Not walking yet, mind you, but exercises to keep the muscles from wasting away. Mr. Reed can help you. After the doctor left, Griffin fashioned a crutch from a forked branch. For when you're ready, he said, setting it by the bed. That evening, he helped her with the first exercises, supporting her leg as she attempted to bend and straighten it. The pain was excruciating, and Bella couldn't hold back her tears. "I'm sorry," she gasped, clutching his arm. "Don't be," he said softly. "You're stronger than you know, Bella Hayes." It was the first time he'd used her given name, and something in his voice made her look up. The concern in his eyes had deepened into something more, something that made her heart beat faster despite her pain. As May turned to June, Bella's strength gradually returned. With Griffin's help, she progressed from bed to sitting in a chair, then to standing briefly with the crutch. Each small victory was celebrated, each setback faced together. Griffin proved to be not just physically strong, but emotionally supportive as well. On nights when pain kept her awake, he would sit beside her, sometimes reading aloud from one of his few books, other times simply talking in his low, steady voice about the stars, the seasons, the ways of cattle and horses. Bella found herself sharing her own story, her comfortable upbringing in Boston, the devastating loss of her parents, her decision to join a wagon train west in search of a teaching position. She'd hoped to start fresh in Helena or perhaps even reach Oregon. "I had references, teaching materials, everything," she said wistfully. "All gone now." Griffin considered this. Sweetwater's growing. Might need a teacher soon enough. The possibility gave Bella hope, something she desperately needed as the reality of her situation became clearer. Her leg was healing, but Dr. Wilson's warnings proved accurate. She would likely always walk with difficulty. "The nerve damage is permanent," the doctor explained during his third visit. "You can strengthen the muscles with exercise, but there will always be weakness and probably pain." Bella had nodded stoically, but later, alone with Griffin, she'd broken down. "What kind of life can I have now? Who would want a crippled teacher?" Griffin had taken her hands in his expression fierce. "Don't talk that way. You're alive. You're healing. The rest will sort itself out." His confidence buoyed her, and the next day she insisted on trying to help with small chores around the cabin. Griffin protested, but eventually relented when he saw her determination. June brought warmer weather, allowing Bella to sit outside on a bench Griffin had constructed near the cabin door. From there, she could watch him work in the garden or with his horses, taking pleasure in the way sunlight glinted off his hair when he removed his hat to wipe his brow. She was noticing more about him, now the way one corner of his mouth lifted slightly when he was amused, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, the careful precision with which his hands accomplished every task. For his part, Griffin seemed increasingly aware of her gaze. Sometimes he would look up suddenly, catching her watching him, and they would share a moment of connection before both looked away, flustered. One evening in late June, as they sat outside watching the sunset paint the sky in vivid oranges and pinks, Griffin broke their comfortable silence. "I've been thinking about your situation." Bella turned to him, curious. "Oh." He cleared his throat. "The town council is meeting next week. I plan to speak to them about the need for a school. There are at least 20 children in Sweetwater now, and more in the surrounding homesteads." Hope fluttered in Bella's chest. "You think they might hire me?" "I think they'd be fools not to," he said firmly. "You're educated, experienced. The fact that you need a cane to walk doesn't change that." Bella reached over impulsively and squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Griffin, for everything." His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong. For a long moment, neither moved, their joined hands a bridge between them in the gathering dusk. The town council meeting was held in Sweetwater's only church, a simple wooden structure that doubled as a community gathering place. Griffin insisted on bringing Bella, helping her into the wagon and ensuring she was comfortably seated on a bench near the front. Mayor Thompson, a former shopkeeper with political ambitions, called the meeting to order. Various town matters were discussed before Griffin stood to speak. "Many of you know me," he began, his deep voice carrying easily. "I'm not one for speeches, but I come before you today with a proposal. Sweetwater is growing. We have families now, children who need education." Heads nodded in agreement. Griffin continued, gaining confidence. "Miss Hayes here was traveling to Helena to take up a teaching position when she was attacked by bandits. She was injured, but her mind and her training remain intact. She was educated in Boston and has 3 years' experience teaching children of all ages." Bella felt eyes turn to her, some curious, some skeptical. She straightened her spine, meeting their gazes steadily. "The town needs a school," Griffin concluded. "And we have a qualified teacher right here. I propose we establish a school with Miss Hayes as its teacher." Mayor Thompson stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Where would this school be located? And how would it be funded?" "I've spoken with Mr. Peterson," Griffin replied, nodding to a prosperous-looking man near the back. "He's willing to donate the use of his old storehouse on Main Street. As for funding, I suggest a subscription system each family with children pays what they can afford." Discussion erupted, with opinions flowing freely. Bella listened anxiously, her heart pounding. This was her chance to rebuild her life, to have purpose again. Finally, after much debate, a vote was taken. The result was unanimous in favor of establishing the school, with Bella as its teacher. "Congratulations, Miss Hayes," Mayor Thompson said, approaching her after the meeting adjourned. "We'll expect you to start when the building is ready, perhaps in 2 weeks' time." Bella was overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't disappoint you." The ride back to Griffin's cabin was filled with excited planning. Bella's mind raced with ideas for lessons, books she would need, how to arrange the classroom. "I can't believe it's really happening," she said, turning to Griffin as he drove the wagon. "I have you to thank for this." He shook his head. "I just made the introduction. You won the council over all on your own." That night, Bella couldn't sleep. Her future, which had seemed so bleak after the attack, now held promise again. She would have work, purpose, a place in the community. And she would be near Griffin. The thought gave her pause. In the 2 months since he'd found her bleeding in the dirt, Griffin Reed had become more than a rescuer or caretaker. He'd become essential to her in ways she was only beginning to understand. She listened to his steady breathing from his pallet near the fire, wondering what would happen now. Would he expect her to find her own lodgings in town? The thought of leaving his cabin brought an unexpected pang of loss. The next morning, Griffin addressed her unspoken concern. "I've been thinking," he said as they shared breakfast. "You'll need a place in town once school starts. The cabin above Peterson's store might be available." Bella nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. "That would be convenient." Griffin studied his coffee. "Of course, you're welcome to stay here as long as you'd like. I could drive you to town each morning." Relief flooded through her. "I would prefer that, actually, if it's not too much trouble." His eyes met hers, and the intensity in them took her breath away. "It's no trouble at all." The next 2 weeks passed in a flurry of activity. The storehouse was cleaned and transformed into a schoolroom, with benches built by the town carpenter and a blackboard donated by the general store. Notices were posted throughout the area announcing the school's opening. Griffin spent every spare moment helping, building a special desk for Bella that would allow her to teach while seated when her leg pained her too much to stand. He also constructed a ramp at the schoolhouse entrance, so she wouldn't have to navigate steps. The day before school was to begin, Bella stood in the completed classroom, emotion overwhelming her. From devastation to this new beginning, the journey had been arduous, but ultimately hopeful. "It's perfect," she whispered as Griffin came to stand beside her. It will do for now, he replied. The town will build a proper schoolhouse eventually. Bella turned to him, impulsively taking his hand. I don't know how to thank you. Griffin's fingers tightened around hers. Seeing you here, ready to teach again, that's thanks enough. Something in his voice made her look up. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows illuminated his face, highlighting the warmth in his eyes and the slight flush on his cheeks. Griffin, she began, not sure what she wanted to say, only knowing that something important hung in the air between them. He took a step closer. Bella, the door swung open, interrupting whatever he had been about to say. Mayor Thompson entered, beaming. Miss Hayes. Everything to your satisfaction? We're all quite excited about tomorrow. The moment broken, Griffin stepped back, releasing her hand. Bella composed herself and turned to address the mayor's questions, but her thoughts remained on what might have been said if they hadn't been interrupted. The school's opening day exceeded all expectations. 15 children arrived, ranging in age from 6 to 14. Bella divided them into groups based on their previous education, which varied widely. Some could barely recognize letters, while others had been taught at home by educated parents. Despite the challenges, Bella thrived. Teaching again brought purpose back to her life, and the children's eager faces each morning made the pain in her leg more bearable. She still relied heavily on her cane, and some days were worse than others, but she persevered. Griffin continued to drive her to town each morning and pick her up each afternoon. Their routine developed a comfortable rhythm, with breakfast shared at dawn and dinner together in the evening. On weekends, they worked side by side on projects around the cabin, Griffin handling the heavy labor while Bella managed tasks she could do while seated. July turned to August, bringing intense heat that made Bella's injured legs swell and ache. Griffin fashioned a special stool that allowed her to keep the leg elevated during school hours, and in the evenings, he would help her apply cool compresses to reduce the swelling. It was during one such evening, as Griffin gently wrapped her leg after applying a compress, that Bella finally voiced what had been growing in her heart. I've been thinking, she said, watching his hands work with such care, about us. His movements stilled for a moment before resuming. Have you now? Bella gathered her courage. Yes. These past months. You've been everything to me, Griffin. My rescuer, my caretaker, my friend. And now I find myself wondering if there might be more. Griffin finished securing the bandage, then looked up, his eyes meeting hers. I've wondered the same thing. Every day since I found you. The simple admission sent Bella's heart racing. And what conclusion have you reached? He moved to sit beside her on the bed, taking her hands in his. That I love you, Bella Hayes. That I want to build a life with you, if you'll have me. Tears welled in Bella's eyes. Even with my leg the way it is? I'll never be whole again. Griffin's expression grew fierce. You're whole. Your injury doesn't define you. Your courage does. Your kindness. Your determination. His voice softened. And I love every part of you, exactly as you are. Bella reached up to touch his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. I love you too, Griffin Reed. More than I thought possible after everything I've lost. He turned his head to press a kiss to her palm. Then we've both found something greater than what we lost. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, both exploring this new territory with wonder. When they parted, Bella saw her own joy reflected in Griffin's eyes. I should warn you, he said, a smile playing at his lips. I'm not a wealthy man. Just a cowboy with a small piece of land and big dreams. Bella laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. And I'm just a schoolteacher with a bad leg and no dowry. We're well matched, I'd say. Griffin's smile broadened. Perfectly matched. They agreed not to rush, to take time to court properly now that their feelings were declared. Griffin began joining Bella at church on Sundays, making their relationship public. The town's reaction was overwhelmingly positive. The hardworking cowboy and the brave schoolteacher seemed a natural pair to most. As summer faded into fall, Bella's school flourished. More children joined, necessitating additional benches and books. The town council, pleased with her success, voted to provide a small salary in addition to the subscription fees from parents. Griffin, meanwhile, continued working at the Rocking M while developing his own land. He spoke increasingly of his plans to expand, to build a larger cabin eventually, and Bella found herself included in these dreams of the future. October brought cooler weather and a new challenge. The owner of the boarding house, Mrs. Winters, approached Bella after church one Sunday. "Miss Hayes, I've been meaning to speak with you," the older woman began. "It's about your living arrangement with Mr. Reed."
Bella tensed.
Although nothing improper had occurred between them, she was aware that their situation might raise eyebrows in a small town. Mrs. Winters continued, her voice lowered. "People are starting to talk. You're the schoolteacher now, a position that demands respectability. Living unchaperoned with a man to whom you're not married." "I understand your concern," Bella replied carefully. "But my injury requires assistance that wouldn't be available if I lived alone." "Perhaps. But you're clearly much improved now." Mrs. Winters patted her arm. "I'm only telling you this as a friend. The school board might not be so understanding if complaints arise." Griffin, who had been speaking with the blacksmith nearby, approached as Mrs. Winters walked away. "What did she want?" he asked, noting Bella's troubled expression. Bella explained as they walked slowly toward their wagon. Griffin's jaw tightened as he listened. "Well, there's a simple solution," he said finally. "Marry me." Bella stopped, staring at him. "What?" Griffin turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "I'm not saying this just because of town gossip. I love you. I want to spend my life with you. I was planning to ask at Christmas, but if you're ready now." "This isn't how I imagined a proposal," Bella said, but she was smiling. Griffin dropped to one knee right there on the church steps, still holding her hands. "Bella Hayes, you came into my life when I least expected it. Loving you has been as natural as breathing. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Around them, churchgoers stopped to watch, a circle of curious faces forming. Bella was aware of them only peripherally, her focus entirely on the man kneeling before her. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and certain. "Yes, Griffin Reed, I will marry you." A cheer went up from the onlookers, and Griffin rose to his feet, gathering her in a careful embrace. Over his shoulder, Bella saw Mrs. Winters watching with a satisfied smile. The older woman gave her a subtle nod of approval. They were married 2 weeks later in the same church, with most of the town in attendance. Bella wore a blue dress ordered specially from Denver, and Griffin had a new suit for the occasion. Dr. Wilson gave the bride away, and the mayor's wife played the organ. "I take this woman to be my wife," Griffin vowed, his voice steady and sure. "To love and cherish her in sickness and in health, for better or worse, until death parts us." Bella, standing with the support of her cane, but without Griffin's arm for the first time in public, made her own vows with equal conviction. "I take this man to be my husband, to love and honor him all the days of my life." The celebration afterward at the town hall was jubilant. Tables groaned with food contributed by well-wishers, and a local fiddler provided music for dancing. Bella sat for most of the festivities, her legs still not strong enough for dancing, but Griffin stayed by her side, content to watch others whirl around the floor. Late in the evening, Mayor Thompson raised a toast. "To Griffin and Bella Reed. May their future be as bright as their courage and as strong as their love." The crowd echoed the sentiment with raised glasses. Bella, overwhelmed by the community's support, squeezed Griffin's hand beneath the table. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Reed?" he asked softly. Home. The word held new meaning now. Not just the cabin where she'd recovered, but their home. the beginning of their shared life. Griffin carried her across the threshold that night, just as he had carried her when she was injured. But this time, instead of placing her on the bed and retreating to his pallet by the fire, he joined her, gathering her in his arms with reverent tenderness. "I've dreamed of this," he confessed as his lips found hers. "Of holding you without restraint, of calling you my wife." Bella's hands traced the contours of his face, memorizing by touch what she'd only admired by sight. "Show me," she whispered. "Show me what you've dreamed." Their first night as husband and wife was a discovery of each other, patient and considerate of Bella's limitations, but no less passionate for it. Griffin's gentle strength had always been her security. Now it became her pleasure as well. Afterward, lying in his arms with moonlight streaming through the cabin's single window, Bella marveled at the journey that had brought them here. "If those bandits hadn't attacked me, we might never have met," she murmured. Griffin's arms tightened around her. "I can't be grateful for what caused you pain," he said. "But I thank God every day that I was the one who found you." Winter descended on Montana with its usual ferocity. Snow piled high around the cabin, and the creek froze solid. School was often canceled due to storms, giving Bella unexpected days at home with her new husband. They used the time to plan for spring. Griffin had been saving diligently and now had enough to buy more land adjoining his property. They sketched designs for a larger cabin, one with a proper bedroom and a separate kitchen. "And a small room for a nursery, perhaps?" Griffin suggested, watching Bella's reaction carefully. She looked up from the rough drawing, her eyes bright. "Do you think? Would it be possible?" Griffin moved to kneel beside her chair, his hand gentle on her still flat stomach. "Dr. Wilson says there's no reason why not. Your injury shouldn't affect childbearing." Bella covered his hand with hers.
"A baby."
"Our baby." The possibility filled her with both terror and joy. "But what if I can't care for an infant properly, with my leg the way it is?" "We'll manage together," Griffin assured her. "As we've managed everything else." By February, their hopes were confirmed. Bella was expecting a child, due in late summer. The news spread quickly through Sweetwater, bringing a fresh wave of community support. Women from town and surrounding farms brought gifts of baby clothes and blankets. The school board, concerned about Bella's health, hired an assistant teacher to help with the younger children. Griffin worked extra hours at the ranch, determined to have their new cabin built before the baby arrived. Spring brought renewed energy. As soon as the ground thawed, construction began on their new home, just 50 yards from the original cabin. Griffin did much of the work himself, with help from friends on weekends. The design was simple but practical: 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a proper stove, and a living area with space for Bella to teach private lessons during school breaks. Bella's pregnancy progressed well, though the extra weight made her injured leg more troublesome. By June, she was using both a cane and Griffin's arm for support when walking any distance. She finished the school year with difficulty but satisfaction, her students having made remarkable progress. "You've transformed this town," Griffin told her one evening as they sat on the porch of the old cabin, watching work continue on their new home. "Before you came, most of these children had no hope of education." Bella rested her hands on her rounded belly. "And you've transformed my life. I came west looking for a new beginning, but I never imagined finding this much happiness after such tragedy." July brought intense heat and the completion of their new cabin. The move was accomplished with help from neighbors, who made the task into a social event, complete with a shared meal afterward to celebrate the Reed family's new home. As her time grew near, Bella's mobility decreased further. The combination of her old injury and her advanced pregnancy often left her bedridden by afternoon. Griffin adjusted his work schedule to be home more, taking on paperwork for the ranch that he could complete at their kitchen table while keeping an eye on his wife. August 18th, 1877, dawned clear and hot. Bella woke early with discomfort that soon revealed itself as the beginning of labor. Griffin sent a ranch hand galloping for Dr. Wilson while he helped Bella prepare. The birth was difficult, as they had expected. Bella's injured leg complicated matters, making it hard for her to position herself effectively. Hours passed with slow progress, Griffin never leaving her side, supporting her physically and emotionally through each contraction. As sunset painted the sky outside their new bedroom window, Grace Eliza Reed finally entered the world with a lusty cry that belied her small size. "A daughter," Dr. Wilson announced, placing the swaddled infant in Bella's exhausted arms. Small but perfect. Griffin sat beside them on the bed, one arm around Bella's shoulders, his other hand gently touching his daughter's tiny face. "She's beautiful," he whispered, voice rough with emotion. "Like her mother." Bella looked from her daughter's scrunched face to her husband's awestruck one. "We did it," she said softly. "We really did it." Recovery from childbirth was slow, complicated by Bella's previous injury. There were difficult days when she could barely get out of bed, when caring for Grace seemed an insurmountable challenge. But Griffin was her constant support, often carrying both his wife and daughter together from room to room when Bella's leg would not cooperate. "I promised I'd carry you until you could walk again," he reminded her during a particularly trying day. "That promise doesn't expire." By Grace's first birthday, life had found a new rhythm. Bella returned to teaching part-time, bringing her daughter with her to school 3 days a week. The other days, she conducted lessons from home for older students preparing for college entrance examinations. Griffin continued expanding their property, adding more cattle each year. His dream of having his own ranch was gradually becoming reality, with 10 acres now firmly in his name and options to purchase more. On cool evenings, they would sit on their porch, Grace playing at their feet, and marvel at how far they had come. Bella still walked with a cane, would always need its support, but she no longer saw it as a mark of weakness. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Griffin one such evening. "Finding me that day? Taking on a woman who couldn't even stand on her own?" Griffin took her free hand, bringing it to his lips. "Finding you was the best thing that ever happened to me, Bella Reed. I loved you when you couldn't stand. I loved you while carrying you until you could walk again. And I love you now as you stand beside me building our life together." Bella leaned against his shoulder, watching their daughter stack wooden blocks on the porch planks. "I used to think my injury was the end of everything. Now I see it was just the beginning." As twilight deepened into night, Griffin gathered Grace in one arm and offered the other to Bella. Together they walked into their home, a family forged through adversity and bound by a love that had begun with a simple act of kindness on the Montana plains. 3 years later, in the spring of 1881, Bella stood on the porch of their expanded home, watching as Griffin taught 5-year-old Grace to ride her first pony. Her cane still supported her, but her stance was confident, strengthened by years of determined exercise and the unwavering support of her husband. Beside her, nestled in a basket, their second child, a son they had named William, slept peacefully. His arrival the previous winter had been easier than Grace's birth, the family better prepared for the challenges of Bella's limited mobility. Sweetwater had grown significantly, now boasting a proper school building with 3 teachers, Bella serving as headmistress. Griffin's small ranch operation had expanded to 30 head of cattle and 5 horses, providing a comfortable living for their family. The sound of Grace's delighted laughter carried across the yard as her pony trotted in a small circle, Griffin walking alongside with a lead rope, his free hand ready to catch her if she slipped. Bella's heart swelled with love for them both, her fearless daughter and the steadfast man who had changed her life with his compassion and strength. As the Montana sun warmed her face, Bella reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the moment a bullet had shattered her leg and Griffin had gathered her broken body in his arms, through the pain of recovery and the joy of falling in love, to the building of this life together, every step, whether taken on her own or carried in his arms, had led to this moment of complete fulfillment. The cowboy who had loved her when she couldn't stand had given her more than the ability to walk again. He had given her a home, a family, and a love that grew stronger with each passing season. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they had faced all others together, one step at a time.